Welcome to California Unfiltered. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you could join us in studio. As always, it's my privilege to have my partner in crime, Jason Wright, formerly CEO, now chairman of the board of CalExitNow.org. Today, he's going to be helping me. We're going to be covering California Unfiltered, the top news in California today. I'm your host, Marc Ruiz Evans, and today we're diving into critical issues affecting California. First, we're going to examine Trump's new tariff policies and their impact on California's economy. Additionally, we'll be looking at the implications of the recent clash with Ukraine's President Zelensky and America's President Donald Trump. And finally, we'll be giving you a super hot, right off the press, up to the minute, flaming details of things that are super big coming up. Update on CalExit with the top person in the organization who is at most of the meetings on the back end now. I'm so grateful for that, and knows the most, and he'll be covering all that in just a few minutes. But let's get started. So our first episode today is going to be Trump-Zelensky implications. The recent clash between Donald Trump, America's president, and President Zelensky of Ukraine raises serious questions about federal-state relations and aid distribution. Basically, what happened was Trump and Zelensky had a shouting match. J.D. Vance, the vice president, got involved. It really looked unprofessional. And it did not look like the way allies speak to each other. That's all I'm going to say for a breakdown. Let's go right to Jason. Jason, you saw this. What did you think of it in general? And what did you think of this as the larger story of what does this mean about America and why we're interested in CalExit?
Yeah, well,
your opinion.
Let me just start by saying thank you for having me back. I know I was supposed to be here for a second one.
We can't carry on when you're not here. And we just...
I know, right?
Dave starts crying. It's embarrassing. Okay? I have to pick him up. The pieces someone has to pick, so please.
So
what do you got for us today? You were impressed and you thought that's exactly how a president should behave, correct?
Well,
what?
Yeah, kind of. When I saw Zelensky decide, clearly set this up so that they can kind of kick me into a corner and then tell me that I need to be grateful that they've kicked me into a corner, and while I'm down on the floor, I should shine their boots for them. And he decided not to. Now, usually when people talk about Trump and they're Trump fans, they talk about, oh, he's a strong leader. He won't back down from anyone. They love it when it's from him, but they hate it from everyone else.
I've noticed.
It seems like they just like one bully in particular and want everyone else to sit down, shut up, and just give them everything. Hey, I want all of your country's mineral resources right now or else. Like, I mean, really, what if I'm a citizen of a country and the person in charge is just like, oh, yes, totally. Here, let me shine your boots for you and let me, dust off your and thank you and kiss your hand and tell you how amazing I think you are and worship you and praise you, and I'm going to put up a picture of you over my mantle in my home. Then, as a citizen of the country that person is supposed to be running, I'm not going to feel like they are for me or for the people of our country if they're doing this for another country's leader, right? Anything you want, whatever you want. So I think that really the only I will give the caveat that maybe it's not the literal only decision that he could have made. Sure, he could have said, "Oh, yes, yes, Mr. Trump, let me say thank you one more times so that you can know that I am so thankful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Vance. Oh, you guys, American number ones." But really, would his people have appreciated him for that? Probably not.
Well, I mean, why not
And
do a
hearing-
curtsy?
Well, yeah, right. Why
That's
not?
what I'm hearing you say.
Why not put on a tutu and do a curtsy? So
He should have prostrated himself, is what I'm hearing you say.
Oh yeah, right.
I am not worthy.
Self-flagellation, you know.
And instead, he returned Trump's energy back to Trump. And
Yeah.
that's the problem, I think, is what you're saying.
Exactly. That, and
Can't handle it.
it's
He can dish it out, but he can't handle it, can he?
it was really clear months ago that should the Great Orange One come back into the Oval Office, that they are going to be pulling out of Ukraine. You remember our talks about that, and lo and behold, Mr. Wright is right yet again. So
It happened.
they had it set up. They had it all. Now, you know, it takes a little bit of thought and effort to draft up, you know, policies and stuff for government organizations, something you specialize in, right? Now, these things take time and thought and effort, and like usually you have to pull a team of people to make sure everything is totally covered. So how is it that immediately when he's out of the White House after that shouting match, they have it already ready, and they're like, yep, we're cutting off the funding to Ukraine?
Good point.
Because they had it written up already. They set it up so that he would walk in right there in front of the corner, and all they had to do is just kick him into the corner. And then tell him, if you don't lick our boots while you're down there, then we're going to kick you out. And he's like, well, you're already kicking me on the ground and telling me that I need to appreciate it. Like, what in the heck, guys, really? So I don't really find any fault with him for it. I think that probably most Ukrainian citizens, at least from the little bit that I've been seeing, seems like there's not really a whole lot of pushback against Zelensky for it. Lots of pushback against Trump-Stiltskin and Vancy Schmancy Pants. Schmancy Pants McVance. Call them what you... Hey, they got their nicknames. We can have ours.
I prefer Deputy Führer, but that's just me.
Deputy Führer. Can we call him Deputy Mick Führer?
Guy said, hey, I mean, he only won his race because he had a TV commercial where he said, do you hate Mexicans? So as a Latin person, to me, that's exactly like when Hitler wrote his book in prison and said his plans for communists, Jews, Jehovah's Witness, I think a couple other religious groups, and the people who are on spectrum. So not isolated. Well,
and, you know, real quick, I'd just like to point out how, you know, a lot of the rest of the world's leaders are like, what? How can this happen? Why are they behaving like this out of the American White House? Oh my goodness. Clearly, they do not understand Trump.
yeah.
Clearly, they do not understand Trump-isms. Clearly, they do not understand how to communicate with someone who's that narcissistic. I get it. It's tough. Trust me. I know. Takes a lot of practice to, like, communicate with someone who's an absolute egotistical, narcissistical person. However, the dude is the leader of America, so you want to work with him, you got to learn how to work with him. And
Sure.
it's hitting me that maybe there's, you know, a way that we can offer consulting. You know, hey, for a consulting fee, I will go ahead and coach the rest of the world's leadership on how to deal with someone like this and what to expect from this crazy.
Yeah.
A little hint, only ever expect crazy from crazy.
It strikes me as Well, two things. The way that the way that you just described Trump now resembles the way that medieval kings were treated in England roughly since the fall of Rome to maybe the birth of the Enlightenment, somewhere in the 1700s. So we're talking about a 1,000-year period, roughly 700 to 1700. And it was the same thing because you didn't have government systems and there weren't elections and there weren't exactly policy advisors or people telling people. The way that you got things done was you just sucked up to the king and you buttered up the king and talked about how great the king was and how whatever you wanted to ask was going to benefit the king, not the people. And that's how deals got done. It's amazing that America's now returned to a system of government last seen 500 years ago. You also described Trump as somebody who, you need to think of him as a savior and have his picture in the window in your house, etc. That is exactly how the Soviet people were ordered to behave under Joseph Stalin in the 1950s. So some historical precedents there just leaping out into my mind, which I find inappropriate for what we call a functional, transparent democracy, which just tells me we're not in one.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And, I would say it seems like this might be the second age of placation.
I'd always call Jay Shakespeare CalExit, and you could see why. Any other comments on that before we move on?
I would just say that obviously most sane and rational people anywhere in the world who understand anything about governance and like civics and, political discourse, right? If they're aware of this whole, for lack of a better term, crap show that happened in the Oval Office recently, if they're aware of it, they are likely viewing it that America, the United States of America, is being run into the ground and run by mentally/emotionally unstable people.
Yeah.
Which, again, right, is second age of placation, because back in that time, all you could do was placate or off with your head. So you just placate. Now, Zelensky maybe didn't realize that we're like in this second age of placation. Seems like immediately most of the European Union leaders started getting on board. And as they're coming on board, Trump's like, well, you've already kind of said no and snubbed me. So now I'm going to start talking about whether or not the United States should leave NATO. That was just this morning.
That's the way kings and emperors would behave.
Exactly.
First, they assaulted me, so I'm not sure that my government will behave, and they separate.
You didn't vote for me in the numbers that I like, so I don't know if I'm going to provide you the funding and the aid to recover from massive wildfires.
Right. So it's not just that you're a representative of a government, you are the country, and so everything that benefits you, in theory, in your mind, benefits the country. It's just a governmental system we haven't seen in 5 centuries, so it's bizarre that it's...
And the Senate.
Yeah, this is before Okay, so move on to our next topic here. Trump's economic tariffs. Let's begin with Trump's new tariff policies and what they mean for California. 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. California's position is the number one importer state, $120.5 billion from China, $61.5 billion from Mexico. Major sectors, computers, electronic products, transportation, and agriculture especially. Projected consumer price increases jumping from 1.5%. So they're predicting that with the Trump's tariffs, you might see the price of goods go up 1.4% to as high as 5.1%. But particularly with California, what they're saying is because we are such a net importer and exporter state, I think 40 to 50% of California's economy is internationally linked, whereas it's only about 10% of America on average. So when when they do these trade wars, it really affects California because we have two of the largest ports. We're full of immigrants. We're full of international trade. And so compared to Iowa or Nebraska, we really get hurt. Last time when Trump did this, we talked to Jim Wunderman of the Bay Area Council, which is the group of the top 400 companies in the Bay Area. And in that hour-long meeting, he expressed to us, and this is the guy that represents the top 400 companies in the Bay Area, a 1%er par excellence. And he spent the hour talking about how we just got ruined. When Trump wanted to go into a war with China, he had to generally convince the Republicans it was okay. And nationally, they took a little bit of a hit. In California, we took a big hit. In the Bay Area, they took a gigantic hit. So for America, okay. For California, it's a punch to the gut. For the Bay Area, it's a punch to the gut and a punch to the face and another punch to the face. And he was talking about how Trump doesn't care because we're in California, so he doesn't care, and it's funny. And Republicans already think we're bad for business, so when we say, hey, you're hurting our business climate, they're not really willing to listen to that because they've already been programmed to believe that we're just horrible for business anyways. So they don't believe anything we say. And you go, we lost a lot of money. I was looking at some of the numbers here real quick. So you can just type in California lost money, China trade war 2019. And this is the AI overview. Quote, California lost billions of dollars during the 2018 to 2019 trade war with China, particularly in agriculture and manufacturing. Almond prices fell from $2.50 to $1.40. That's almost being halved for that. Wine massively lost a lot of money because when Trump started the trade war with China, China immediately retaliated. They didn't economically need to, but they wanted to send a signal back to Trump that they could hurt us. So what did they do? They punished the California wine industry. And then we lost money. Did Trump care? No, because it didn't actually affect America. It affected only California. And so when China thought that they could put pressure on California as a way of hurting Trump, it did nothing. Trump didn't care that we lost money. Trump didn't care that we were in pain. And so China misgambled. They thought if they could stick it to us, Trump would care. He didn't care. We talked to Jim Wunderman, president of the Bay Area Council, and that's what he's saying. No one cared in America, and they were basically all alone. And they were trying to do foreign policy with China independent of America because they had no other option. Same things we've seen when Trump started a war with North Korea. First thing North Korea did, develop a missile that can hit California. Right. So Trump goes, I'm big bad America. These people don't threaten all of America. They threaten us here in California. Destroyed our wine industry, dropped major agricultural products down. Oranges, walnuts, and table grapes, exports of these fruits dramatically fell. Table grapes are a huge moneymaker in Asia. They basically can't produce them, and it's seen as a exotic 1%er fruit. So we lost all that. Farm payments, California farmers received $355.4 million in 2019. This was less than half of the state's losses. So the farmers seem to lose about half of their income in the ag industry. When we go to computers and electronics, California lost job in the computer electronics sector, especially in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley area, just like we were talking about. California lost jobs in the garment industry, especially in the Los Angeles area. Overall, California's trade losses were in the billions of dollars. The trade war had a negative impact on the U.S. economy, reducing GDP, employment, and capital stock. And the trade war also raised prices for U.S. consumers and companies and contributed to the inflation wave. So that was last time. Now he's proposing the same thing this time. We got screwed.
Well, and not just proposing. It went into effect this morning that 25% tariffs on our next door neighbors, Mexico and Canada. Also, the 10% tariff that had already been implemented upon him retaking office just, a month ago. I guess like a month and a half ago now. That is now doubled to 20%. So all of his talk about China, first year, second term, or second time around, right? Second campaign, it's all about China. This time around, China. Well, then why are you out the gate imposing stronger tariff on our next door neighbors than you are on China? If you're so worried about China economically interfering with America and blah, 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 then you would act in a certain way to do that. You wouldn't 10% and then only kick it up to 20% when you enact 25% on both your next door neighbor. I mean, that's like saying, basically, we have to double this so it's somewhere comparable to what we're about to do to these other guys. Otherwise, it looks unfair. Now, if your policy needs that sort of a caveatal adjustment, then it's not really in line with what you were talking about now, is it? And again, our next door neighbors are the ones who he's hitting harder than anyone. Not the ones overseas who he's made such a big stink about. The ones he's hitting hardest are the ones who are directly standing against him. I don't know how many people he's tried to deport back to China, but I haven't heard anything about Xi Jinping won't accept the military, transports full of citizens and whatnot. But who has? Central America all the way down to South America. They've said, which, I totally don't blame them for. At the same time, I would have to point out, hey, these people are, at least still alive and not, dropped off in a mass grave somewhere. So the fact that they're, being sent back, maybe it's the little more humanitarian thing to do to actually allow them to come back, because if you say no and they get sent back to America again, there's no telling what, Nazis be Naziing, yo.
Yeah, we've seen that. I'm not going to repeat the gesture, but yeah, we've seen normalization of Nazi salutes on television recently. So
yeah,
as a brown-skinned man, that makes me feel wonderful. I'll just add that in addition to the economic impacts for major industrial sectors for California being dramatically damaged in 2019, definitively, that's not an interpretation, that's not an opinion, that's a hard economic fact. And now the literal same policies in a more egregious and aggressive manner are going into place. So you can kind of tell what's going to happen. Whether or not this plan is actually good for America, which a lot of the evidence says that it isn't, but assuming you're a Trump voter and you don't believe all that, there is no debate that this is ruinous for California. So on top of that, it's tourism and university stays and real estate. So when America has a bad image, people don't necessarily just buy products from California. They will come over here to spend money for having fun. They will come over here and send their children to go to universities here. They also might buy a piece of property for a summer home or a winter home or vacation place. Whenever America has a horrible image and they're disgusted with it, like when George W. Bush invaded Iraq after lying to the entire planet about there were weapons of mass destruction, or like Donald Trump's first term being elected president, or certainly like his second term, we lose money. So California is the FDI number one, that means foreign direct investment number one. It's the most attractive location, economic locale in the entire planet and in all of America for foreign direct investment. When America misbehaves or seems to be acting crazy, as it would say, tourism dries up, foreign college student enrollment dries up, and housing investment dries up. That's in addition to our agriculture, Hollywood movie, and computer laptop software programs that also get hit when Trump goes into a trade war. So horrible for us, ruinous for us, no benefit for us. And that's even if you're the most hardcore Trump supporter who's not going to listen to anything the liberal media says. There's literally no debate on the effect in here in California.
Yeah. And, it just kind of comes back to that America has failed, right? It's not that America is failing. It's that pretty much everywhere we look, every example, every moment of every day now is turning into headline news that showcases varying different ways in which the United States is broken, is just kind of gone the way of the dodo. And remember, the dodo didn't actually go extinct because it was like a dumb bird or something. It was hunted to extinction. Although actually, I guess they found like two or three breeding pairs of dodos somewhere. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Much like the Thule Elk Project, something that
Fair enough.
But that all is to say that mankind blatantly went about trying to exterminate the dodo because it was, a stop-off point. Here's this bird. It's easy to catch. Hey, it's good eating. And then at a certain point, they realized, oh, we've kind of gone a little overboard, haven't we? Well, we might as well just finish the job. Now, if you look at the United States and the way it's been going over the last 20 years, I'm not talking just, Trump. I'm talking no matter who has been in power, no matter the balance of power or whatever, right? Whatever the dichotomatic fall of it all, the United States of America has been collapsing further in on itself, has had multiple times in the last 20 years where a budget could not be passed and there were government shutdowns and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a failed nation. We call that a failed country. Right. When it happened in the Soviet Union, right before it happened, when a couple of countries were like, oh, wow, this budget's not going to pass, and so we're actually going to be left without, and no one's getting along, everyone's arguing, no solutions are coming forth, because obviously these people in power aren't serving the people, they're serving themselves. Now again, I'm talking about the USSR right as it fell, but doesn't this ring strikingly similar to the United States right now, especially over the last 20 years, when you don't just look at this last piece and say, oh, it's a dip. You look at this whole stretch and you see very clearly it's been going down and now it's reaching rapid descent. Right. Almost like they said, well, it's going the way of the dodo. Might as well finish the job.
Okay. That brings us to our last segment here, winding down, but we still got something very important for you. Jason Wright, chairman of the board of CalExitNow.org. What is going on with the CalExit movement? I know that you're doing a lot behind the scenes that the public may not exactly see. all of that, and there's plans for all of that to be launched and come online, and everybody can see it. And I understand there's a lot of sensitive material, and there's certain things you can't talk about, but, well, at least for the moment until they're official. But to the degree that you can talk in a few minutes, could you give us a deep dive on what the CalExit movement is doing behind the scenes that people may not see? Maybe some of it's public. Explain what it is and what that all means, like what's going to come from that, please.
Totally. So, where to begin with all the updates? Let's start with between 90,000 and 120,000 signatures have been gathered and sent in and all of that already. We are on track as far as amount of time and amount of signatures needed. We're on track. Both of those are staying pretty equal. So we're not falling behind on signatures or falling behind on time. We're doing good. Better than good. We're actually there's that term. We are doing quite swimmingly.
Oh, yeah.
To give a little throwback there.
Yeah. Certainly.
We have more interest day after day coming in than we can even
respond to.
Well, and then we can really even talk about, there are people who are political figures. There are people who are legal figures. There are people who are entertainment figures. There are people across all levels of life who are coming out of the woodwork and reaching out and saying, hey, I like what you're doing. I see this. I want to be involved. How do I get involved? What can I do? What do you need? We need more of that. Everyone that's coming to us like that, we're working hard. We don't really talk about it too much because a lot of it, as you said, is behind the scene.
For now. I mean, all of this eventually is going to go public and be launched, but when it's ready.
I mean, most people don't want to be bored with a 3-hour explanation on what is an S Corp and why would we be doing this umbrella corporation with all of these little entities under it, and what's the purpose of this and the funding and what's the funding for it, right?
It's important to know.
It is important to know, and that's why we've covered a lot of it already through a lot of our videos and talks and stuff. Which means now what we're focusing on is less talk about all of that. That stuff is still getting done. Trust me, I'm on it. We got Dr. X working, Professor X working on it. So, superpower, his brain is superpowered. So, he's helping us get that thing together because we've had this vision for a while. We've just not been able to really make it happen on the paper, right? He's handling that for us so that Marcus can still handle policy and do podcasts and stuff. I can still come on occasionally and, do little interviews and updates and, do the TikTok on Sunday nights at 7 with Sarah Sojourns on TikTok, SarahSojourns. Live every Sunday with Marcus and myself to answer questions. We have, it's been known for quite some time that we've been working on a cryptocurrency that is almost ready to drop. That is one of the myriad projects that X has been helping to finalize. The moment that drops, we're going to make sure every CalExiter knows. There are a couple other projects that we're doing that we haven't said anything to anyone about. So I can't really say too much other than to say that we are looking to showcase Californians and Californianism as much as we possibly can. We also have all sorts of different LGBTQIA community folks who are very prominent within the community who have expressed much worry about the state of the United States. And I think it's important to state that the State of the Union is going on right now while we're doing this. January 20th, Trump was getting sworn in on the Capitol in D.C., and we were on the steps of the Sacramento Capitol protesting that he was even still around, and like, this is just so horrible. Now, flash forward a little bit, and here it is, while the State of the Union's going on, and Trumpelstiltskin's giving his speech, probably, what's his name, Stephen Miller wrote for him. Yeah, right, I'm sure it's gonna not say Auschwitz, but have a lot to do with it. While that's going on, we're here discussing California, Californianism, CalExit, and how awesome it's doing. So, don't lose heart, don't lose hope, don't lose faith. We're going strong, and we're going now. Everyone who has been expressing concerns, we hear them loud and clear, and we're right here with you. We are all in this together. Whether someone's LGBTQIA or not, we're all Californians. First and foremost, I am a Californian. I hope you are too. Viva todos Californios.
As he was explaining, the movement's gotten around 90,000 to 120,000 signatures from people who've emailed asking request a copy of the petition. Most of the people who came in said that they knew between 3 to 6 other people that they were going to share it with. They are working on building an S-Corp. Many other organizations under the umbrella, under the leadership of Jason and Xavier Mitchell. Xavier Mitchell has 6 publicly traded companies, so he knows what he's doing with that, and a nonprofit. Part of that will include also a nonprofit in this organization, so they're getting the corporate structure up, all the right boxes to organize this, to be able to do nonprofit advocacy and more direct advertising and education for the public. We're also looking at publishing some books, publishing some movies. They recently have interviewed a major social media personality who's part of the LGBTQ community. They also interviewed some major LGBTQIA people who have access to major Hollywood nightclubs. So we might be looking at a California clubbing event in addition to better outreach on PR for that. Additionally, a lot of committees are being formed. This is one of the most important things that we're talking about right now. And this was Dr. Xavier Mitchell's idea, was that rather than wait for CalExit to happen and then propose how California might change, we don't want to do everything, but it might be good to tackle some long-ranging issues and propose policy changes to those issues now as the CalExit group, so that we could show and not just tell the public that we are suggesting changes to make California better, and we're actually getting the policies implemented before CalExit comes online, showing where our heart is and showing that we actually understand the legal and legislative system, and showing that we can make policies get done and be influential in Sacramento. We're going to be recently announcing Dr. Nina Robinson with a few other medical doctors as part of a medical association on that. They're making recommendations on single-payer health care, in addition to better doctors and more beds to prevent the next COVID emergency. Apparently, a lot of people in California died, and they didn't have to because there was a shortage of beds and doctors that goes back a full decade before COVID-19 and exacerbated the death toll that has not been fixed at all. Some of these doctors pointed that out. We're also bringing on teachers for a teacher group, And we're also looking at somebody to handle public relations as our talking points have become more modified and changed. The organization's shifting from a strictly grassroots, keep the message alive, keep the flame burning, to we have 40,000 people. How do we actually organize all these people? And how do we get reps in all the major areas, San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Oakland, Sacramento, and then the Central Valley, principally Fresno? And how can we coordinate all that so that we have signature gatherers seen on the street corners in every major urban area? And then additionally, we're raising the funds to provide those people all the accoutrement they need: shirts, petitions, transportation, information. In addition, we'll be looking at running advertisements like billboard signs along freeways. That's never happened in California. And in addition to that, we'll be looking at hiring paid signature gatherers to get us over the final top. So all of that's coming online. CaliCoin's a big part of that, but they'll also be looking at donations. There's also merch coming online. They've also hired a new website designer who's massively overhauling the website. So a lot of big personalities have come forward. They're being interviewed by Jay. They're being vetted by Jay. They're being placed by him and Dr. Xavier in the organization. As I like to say, if it looks like an old Amish barn raising, we're at the point where the Amish would construct the barn on the ground. So they don't actually build it up. They build the whole thing on the ground, and then they raise the pieces up to top and latch them together. The barn has been built. It's lying on the ground. That's why you don't see it. We're about ready to raise those pieces up and latch them together so that you actually see a fully formed house. The infrastructure, the bone work, the cartilage is already in place. It hasn't been properly linked up. That should be coming within the next week or two. You could see massive adjustments. And again, following the leadership from Jason Wright, this is right where we wanted to be at this time. Did I say anything wrong?
No. I would also, you mentioned that we've been making adjustments to the website, and I forgot to mention that now on our website, calexitnow.org, that's CalExitnow.org, calexitnow.org has a place to register your support.
Register your support.
Many people, since our Sunday at 7 live TikTok, many people have started registering their support already. Love it. We need that because that allows us to, one, when asked, hey, how many members do you have? We can say, oh, we've got this many people. Two, we know that the number is nothing laughable. It's nothing small. So when politicians wonder, hey, do I have to meet with these guys? Do I have to listen to what they're saying? Do I have to listen to what these constituents are saying based on these two goons?
Well, it's been a while since it was called a goon.
Well, then they see the numbers. And they're going to see those numbers and go, oh, yes, I have to listen. Yes. Yeah, it's too big of a number to say no to.
That's what it's about.
So register your support, donate, volunteer, whatever you can. Let's get this done.
Tell people about it. Normalize the conversation. Say that you are interested in discussing this, and emote to them, suggest to them with emotion that there's not a damn thing wrong with talking about having a vote in a democracy, and that anybody who has a problem with having a discussion doesn't actually know democracy or believe in it.
Also, after the whole resist movement just totally belly upped and decomposed on the side of the road.
Yep. Totally dead.
And now it's some leather, roadside leather, right?
James Carville said
now that that's happened, I think we can just say that there really is no other way to resist Trump. There isn't. if resisting Trump and Trumpism and saving yourself and your loved ones and our future generations of Californians from Trump and Trumpism, if that's your key motivation, just know what we're doing is the only way to do that. If you're wondering, well, how would the founding fathers of the United States feel about this? How would the founding fathers of the United States feel about what's going on in the United States of America right now? How would they feel knowing that there are people who right now, during this time in America, that there are people who are saying anything other than when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for a people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. I'm just saying, the Founding Fathers literally laid it out in the Declaration of Independence. There is nothing more American, not even apple pie. Nothing more American than what we are doing. Nothing more in line with the Founding Fathers than what we are doing.
You said that, and I've heard people say that since you said that, more in line with what the American Founding Fathers meant now than what America's mutated into.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd just like to point out this essay to back up what you're saying, how the resist movement dead and CalExit is now the only alternative. Well, you're right, because what I'm seeing from people is that the other alternative is to just cry and experience the pain and wallow in fear. I don't really consider that an alternative.
Yeah.
But, so the lowest bar is still worth reaching on Hope, Hopelessness, and Staying Here by Anne Marie Cox. I think I would like it if my writing about recovery overlapped less with my writing about politics. But here we are. I am a survivor of too many things to list here. As I've said before, I'm an expert on hopelessness, and that makes me an expert on hope. The last month has been body blow after body blow. The actions we can take matter, but whatever victories we can manage feel a long way off. The news is a rolling series of cuts. The bleeding never stops. Most of the blood is metaphorical, mostly, but only we fear for now. In the face of this, I've counseled self-care. Do things to help others feel bad. Go to 12-step meetings. Maybe help your neighbor. People asking about hope. I don't have the answer. I don't know where hope comes from, but I do know this. I have felt utterly hopeless over and over again, and then at some point I wasn't. The rest of the article talks about self-care. Not being full of hope, not being full of purpose, just being present, alive for the dawn, alive for the pain, alive for the bad news. Alive for hope when it comes creeping in again. So they basically said the whole thing's hopeless. They see no benefit for America, and they're counseling you, take an extra long shower, hug your dog, comb your hair more, buckle in, because it's going to be a rough ride, and you just need to be alive for the pain and the sorrow and the sadness and just kind of accept it. And, don't commit suicide because it's better to live in pain.
Yeah, what that makes me think of is, they've strapped you down and they're sawing off your leg, and you're sitting there gritting your teeth and screaming in horror through all of the pain. And they're just sawing away, and then they stop and they're like, hey, dude, come on. The pain lets you know you're alive.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so the alternative is we're saying, hey, there's a surgery that's painful but will save your leg. And other people are saying, let them saw the leg and just sit there and go, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. Woe is me. What can I do? They're taking my leg. I've seen a lot of essays like this. It's ridiculous. Basically, stick your head in the sand and cry because life's over and it's just going to suck for us. And they're giving this as advice?
Yeah, my own
advice.
My own sibling who
That's right. She said the same
thing. In the United States Army, multiple tours, injured, and still went back for more.
Yeah, I remember you telling me
they transitioned after their military service
And they
into
said,
a conclusion. And they even said that, well, I think CalExit is a pipe dream and not really achievable. And so the only thing that can really be done is to just bear with it for the next 4 years and hope that we're still alive. I'm just like, how does someone so badass and so awesome who inspired me, inspired my inner warrior? And, you know, we share blood through our mother, and that's our Cherokee lineage.
and that's awesome.
So, like, you know, we both got blood of the warrior. And I'm just appalled when I hear, and now my sibling is not the only person I've heard that from. And not the only warrior that I have heard that from. And what we're advocating is not even war. It's let's stave off Civil War 2.0 before it even gets here by having an amicable national divorce. What's so insane about it? What's so wrong about that? What's so, you know?
I would, yeah.
What's so much more preferable to being tortured and imprisoned and worked to death and then thrown into an oven, you know, what's so much better about that than, well, at least considering having some freedom and safety?
It is literally give up. Why don't they just call it the wallow in fear and despair option? Just moping around, wallowing in fear and despair.
I call it the ostrich option.
Yeah, not even looking for a solution, not even entertaining the idea to look for a solution. Literally the advice from people presenting themselves as experts who want to advise you to do the best thing is to do nothing to improve your situation and wallow in despair. Literally heard it from your sister, literally heard it on this essay. If you're confused at all, Hakeem Jeffries 2 weeks ago. We're not going to fight every fight. We'll fight the fights we think we can win. That means they're doing nothing until midterms. He basically just said, we're not going to do anything and we're not going to fight Trump because we don't have the votes to do anything. So he said, basically, he spun it as, we'll fight the fights that are prudent that we think we can win, but we're not going to waste our effort on everything. Basically, he said, we're not really going to fight Trump because we can't, and we're going to hold out toward midterms and hope for better. That is, keep your head in the sand and wallow in despair. Hakeem Jeffries, this essay, your sister. This is a pattern where liberals are going, well, I mean, secession, that's extreme. Let's wallow in despair and hopelessness and fear and hope that we aren't dead by the next election. My God, that is dumb as hell. That's seen as the reasonable alternative to CalExit? That's stupid. By the way, we got 3 minutes left and we got to go.
Yeah.
And I got to do an outro.
I just want to point out that it kind of doesn't matter someone's background, who someone is, what they've been through. I think the important thing to keep in mind for all of us right now is the fact that almost all of us, if not every single one of us, is feeling some sort of fear, uncertainty, sadness, sorrow, grief, sense of loss, be it within ourselves, like my sibling who transitioned, and now, even though they're one of the most badasses ever to badass for the United States Army, because they transitioned, their whole military service is null and void now or something. They don't exist anymore. Like, and again, you know, also saying, let's not CalExit. And it reminds me that something transcends all boundaries, all demographical anything. And that is fear and uncertainty.
Well, that's it. As we wrap up today's episode of California Unfiltered, We've covered significant ground, from international trade impacts to local emergency measures to the future of America and its collapse. These issues will continue to shape California's future, and we'll keep monitoring their development. I'm Marc Ruiz Evans. This is my co-host, Jason Wright. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. We really, really need that. It helps us get this kind of quality programming out to others so others can have the same information you're privileged to get. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.